Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about both different special right triangles we've talked about for the last couple of weeks. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go back and talk about 45, 45, 90s. Now this is like what we talked about last Wednesday and Thursday. And then we're going to talk about 30, 60, 90s like what we talked about on Friday and then yesterday on Monday. So we're going to be kind of mixing them together today, and that's what makes this a little bit more difficult, is kind of figure out all the little rules, but then you mix them together and then it makes it more difficult. So anyways, we're going to go through the rules again here, just review the rules, and then work out a few problems just to get you back up to speed on this. So we're starting off here with 45, 45, 90. So just remember, what we're about to talk about here on the top part of this is going to be not like what we did yesterday. It's going to be like what we did last week. So first of all, let's talk about what we call each side. So on a 45, 45, 90, what do we call this side of that triangle? Okay, good. We call that the hypotenuse. Okay. Then, what do we call these sides of this triangle? They're legs. Now, again, this is different from the 30, 60, 90, because on the 30, 60, 90, we have a short leg and a long leg. Here, remember on a 45, 45, 90, that these two legs are the exact same length. So it's not like there's a short one and a long one. They're both the exact same length, so we just call them both legs. Okay. So just remembering what we call each side there. Now, on this first one, let's say we know the length of the leg. Okay, so we have, there's the hypotenuse, here's a leg, here's a leg. So let's say we know this leg and we're looking for the hypotenuse. We know the leg, we're looking for the hypotenuse. Okay, so if we know the leg, we multiply it times what to find the hypotenuse? Okay, good. So this is the square root of 2. So you take the leg times the square root of 2, and that gives you the length of the hypotenuse. So for instance, let's say this side is 8. How long is the hypotenuse going to be? 8 times the square root of 2. Just like that. Now remember, you can write the times in here if you want to like that. Put a dot or something in between there. Or you don't have to. It means the exact same thing. And that's the way I'm going to write it, is just without the dot. So that's 8. That's 8 times the square root of 2. All right, let's say this side is 10. How long is the hypotenuse? 10 square root of 2. All right. Let's say this side is 5 square root of 3. Okay, good. So we take the 5 square root of 3 times the square root of 2. Okay, just like what, this rule right here says, I just take the leg times the square root of 2 to give me the hypotenuse. Well, the leg is 5 square root of 3, and I'm multiplying that times the square root of 2. Now remember, this 2, does it get multiplied to the 3 or does it get multiplied to the 5? To the 3, because both of those are inside numbers. So this 2 gets multiplied to the 3, not to the 5. So what is that going to give us? 5 squared is 6. So let's say we have 8 square root of 7. How long is the hypotenuse going to be? Good. So we take the leg, which is 8 square root of 7 times the square root of 2, and this is going to give us 8 square root of 14. All right, now on a 45, 45, 90, let's say I know the hypotenuse, and I want to, so here we have the hypotenuse, leg and leg. Let's say I know the hypotenuse and I want to find the leg. So if I know that, I'm going to do the hypotenuse divided by what? Square root of 2, same thing. It's just going the opposite direction. So I'm going to do the hypotenuse divided by the square root of 2 to find the leg. Okay? So we take the hypotenuse divided by the square root of 2 to tell me what the length of the leg is. So let's say this is 18 square root of 2. Okay, so I'm going to take the hypotenuse, 18 square root of 2, divide that by the square root of 2. What's going to happen to those square root of 2's? Okay, cancel the 1, whatever, cancel. And then that's just going to leave what? It's just going to leave 18, exactly. Let's say this is 24 square root of 2. How long is the leg going to be? It's just going to be 24. All right, let's say this is 8 square root of 6. Good. So I'm going to take 8 square root of 6, divide that by the square root of 2. And since both of these are inside, I'm going to divide the 2 into the 6. I would not divide this 2 into the 8 because 2 is inside, 8 is outside. They don't mix and match. So 2 and 6 are inside. Those get divided. What's 6 divided by 2? It's 3. So this is just going to be 8 square root of 3 right here. Okay, let's say this is 12 square root of 12. What's it going to be? Yep, 12 square root of 6. When you take 12 square root of 12, divided by square root of 2, this 2 goes into the 6. 12 goes into, 2 goes into the 12 6 times, sorry. 12 square root of 6. All right, so that's our 45, 45, 90. That's like what we did last week. And really, it's pretty easy because all you're thinking about is, am I multiplying by the square root of 2 or am I dividing by the square root of 2? That's all you got to think about. Okay, the 30, 60, 90s do take a little bit more because the two legs are different lengths. So first of all, let's talk about what we call each side. So what do we call this side of a 30, 60, 90? That is the hypotenuse. I'm going to label it with an H as we go through here. What is this side right here? Okay, that's the short leg. And then what is this side right here? That's the long leg. Okay, and I'm going to put LL on that. Hypotenuse, short leg, long leg. This one's really important to remember the difference between those three because it can get really confusing, especially between the long leg and hypotenuse. So remember, the little trick here is that this little right angle mark is like an arrow that always points towards the hypotenuse. Just remember that. Hypotenuse is always the longest side. All right. So let's drop down here, and first of all, I'm going to label this. We have hypotenuse, short leg, and long leg. So on this first one, if we know the short leg, and I'm trying to find the hypotenuse, so we have the short leg going to the hypotenuse. So this is like what we talked about yesterday. The short leg times what gives me the hypotenuse? Just times 2. It's double. Here we've done couple times where we've measured and found that it is exactly double. So down here at the bottom where we have our little examples, let's say this is 8. Okay, we have hypotenuse, short leg, and long leg. If the short leg is 8, how long is that hypotenuse? Yeah, it's just 16. It's just times 2. Okay, let's say this is 7 square root of 3. Good. So we have 7 square root of 3 times 2. Okay, just following this rule, short leg times 2 tells me the hypotenuse. So I do 7 square root of 3 times 2. And again, good. The 2 gets multiplied to the 7. It does not get multiplied to the 3. So 2 times 7 is 14. It's going to give me 14 square root of 3. All right, next let's look at this rule right here, right underneath the one we just did. So in this one, the short leg, well, let me label it, sorry, hypotenuse, short leg, long leg. So in this one, I'm talking about the short leg and long leg. So if I'm going from the short leg to the long leg, okay, we do the short leg times what to give us this long leg? Yep, good, square root of 3. All right, so let's do a couple examples of that. Let me label these. I keep forgetting that. Hypotenuse, short leg, long leg. Very important to label. Especially on 30, 60, 90. It can get very confusing. So let's say on this is 8. The short leg is 8. And I want to know what the long leg is here. What do we do? Times the square root of 3. So this is 8 times the square root of 3. And again, you don't have to put the dot there. You can just write it like that. Okay. Hypotenuse, short leg, long leg. Let's say the short leg is 5 square root of 2. I'm going to do 5 square root of 2 times the square root of 3. It's going to give me 5 square root of 6. Yeah, we're working that down here. Yeah. Okay, next one. Let's look at this. So we have the hypotenuse, short leg, and long leg. Now this time we're talking about if we know the long leg, and I'm trying to go back to the short leg. Good. Divide by the square root of 3. Okay, so that's the rule. Let's drop down here and do just a couple examples. Let's say this long leg, hypotenuse, short leg, long leg. Let's say the long leg is 8, and I want to find that short leg. So I'm going to do just exactly what this says, just divide by the square root of 3. So when I divide by the square root of 3, this is just 8 divided by the square root of 3, and we're just going to leave it like that. There's, more simplifying we could do to it, but that's the way I want to do it, is just leave it like this. Okay, let's say this is 12 square root of 6. And I want to go back to this short leg up here. So I'm going to do 12 square root of 6 divided by the square root of 3. So what's that going to make? 12 square root of 2. Okay, then on this last one. All right, we know hypotenuse, short leg, long leg. So on this one, we know the hypotenuse and we're looking for the short leg. So hypotenuse to the short leg. So to get from the hypotenuse to the short leg, I'm going to do the hypotenuse divided by what to give me the short leg? 2. Divided by just 2. Not square root of 2, just 2. So let's say this is 50. How long is that short leg? 25. Just divide by 2, just half of it. Okay, if this is 100, how long is that short leg? It's 50. And let's say this is 16 square root of, let's say it's 3. 16 square root of 3. Okay, good. So we divide by 2. And that 2 divides into the 16, not into the 3. And so that's just going to leave 8 square root of 3. Okay, so make sure you got all those rules written down right there. Okay, good. Yep, let me just go back over to this real quick. So back over here. If I knew the leg, it was times the square root of 2 to give me the hypotenuse. Okay, this row right here. If I know the hypotenuse to get back to the leg, hypotenuse divided by the square root of 2 tells me the leg. Over here to our rules. So first of all, if I know the short leg, how do I get to the hypotenuse? I just multiply it times 2. So I'm going to take the short leg times 2 to tell me the hypotenuse. And if I want to get from the short leg to the long leg, so if I'm going from the short leg to the long leg, what do I do? Multiply. Okay, if I want to go from the hypotenuse to the short leg, what do I do? Just divide it by 2. So if I take the hypotenuse divided by 2, that tells me the short leg. Okay, let's go ahead and flip over to this page right here. Just skipping the warm-up today. So on the back side of where it says warm-up. All right, so number 1, the first question you need to ask is this a 45, 45, 90, or is it a 30, 60, 90? You got to figure out which one it is. Yeah, I mean, obviously this one's a 45, 45, 90. So on a 45, 45, 90, what do I know about these two legs right here? Exactly the same. So this is 8. And now on a 45, 45, 90, if I know the leg, how do I find the hypotenuse? Right? So good. So over here, I mean, just multiply by the square root of 2. It's just 8 times the square root of 2. Okay, number 2. Since these two legs are the same length, I know that because of those congruent marks. I know it's a 45, 45, 90. Okay. Now this one, okay, I should be labeling this. We have hypotenuse, here's the leg, here's the leg. So if I know the hypotenuse, how do I get back to the leg? So I'm going to do 13 square root of 2 divided by square root of 2. What's going to happen to these square root of 2's right here? And cancel to 1, so it just cancels them out, so then that just leaves 13 here. Okay, this one's a 45, 45, 90. Here's the hypotenuse, here's a leg, here's a leg. So first of all, what do I know about the two legs? They're equal, so this is 4 square root of 10. And then if I know the leg, how do I find the hypotenuse? Okay, times the square root of 2. And so what's that going to give me? 4 square root of 20. Okay, looking at number 4. Now number 4, we can see we're flipping over here now and we're talking about a 30, 60, 90. So we need to label this. Which side is the hypotenuse here? Okay, this one right here. This is the short leg, and this is the long leg. So on this one, I know the short leg. That's where I'm starting off. So I'm going to go. So the short leg is 9. So times 2 is going to tell me the hypotenuse. How long is that going to be? It's just 18. And now I want to know the long leg. So I'm going to go back over here to my rule, square root of 3. So I'm just going to take this times the square root of 3, which is just 9 times the square root of 3, like that. Okay, let's drop down to number 10. So number 10, this is a 30, 60, 90. Which one is the hypotenuse here? Here's the 28. Here's the short leg. Here's the long leg. Remember, your little right angle mark is an arrow always pointing towards the hypotenuse. Okay, so I want to get from the hypotenuse to the short. So the hypotenuse is 28. If I divide that by 2, what's the short leg going to be? 14. And now I want to go from the short leg to the long leg. We already said that's times the square root of 3. So this is just 14 times the square root of 3, like that. Go over here to my rules.